Good afternoon. Welcome to the Friends of Wheeling tour this afternoon. Today is Saturday, July the 9th, 2022, and this is an after tour of one building and our first tour of the next door building. So we welcome all of you, and for those watching online and later on our Facebook page, if you would like to join Friends of Wheeling, just let us know. Contact us through Post Office Box 889, Wheeling, West Virginia, and we will put you on our mailing list. So we are here at 3526 Jacob Street. I have a lot of history on this house and one of the prior owners, so I'm not going to read everything like I usually do, but just kind of summarize things. We date this house to probably late 1887. And it appears to be essentially the same architecture as two houses on Chapline Street Row, the ones that were owned by the Clevis brothers. They're twin houses, side by side. And also the Friends of Wheeling house, the Robert W. Hazlett house at 921 Main Street. So the age and the style are very similar. And so we're thinking it was the same architect who did the work here. And his name was Edgar Wells. Sadly, he died in a drowning accident in the Ohio River before many of his projects could be completed, but we feel sure that this is probably his work. So the house was originally owned by Harry and Minerva, or Minnie Seybold, Seybold. And we have interesting information on him and how he came into the money to afford such a grand house. And he was a banker and was convicted of embezzling funds from the bank where he worked. And so anyway, he went to jail, and they eventually had to sell the house. And the next owner was a man named Henry Wheeler, and he purchased the property in 1892. Wheeler was a German immigrant, and he was a cigar manufacturer. Now his son, Albert Wheeler, is a well-known cigar maker for decades, and so lots of people just call this the Wheeler house because he was more well-known and not as infamous as Mr. Seybold. Albert has said that in his younger years he could hand roll between 1,500 and 1,800 stogies per day, when the average was just 500. He worked for Augustus Pollock, who called him one of the best men he'd ever worked for. Wheeler called Pollock that. After Pollock's death, the union struck his plant, and Albert Wheeler went to work for himself. He supported as many as 14 other employees, and they rolled cigars in buildings in the rear of this house. So that's the basics on that. Harry Sidebold, the original owner, was a collection clerk at the Bank of Wheeling. He reportedly told people that he had won the Louisiana lottery, and that's where he came up with the money. But, of course, he hadn't. And as I said, he was tried and convicted of embezzling the money and put that into this house. He at first was keeping cash in the attic, and his wife was curious as to where this money came from, and that's when the Louisiana lottery story came up. He was arrested. The banking and police officials visited his, quote, fine new brick home, and they were surprised at the elegance of this home when he was just a junior level person in the bank. The newspaper stated that the home had been built in the fall of 1887. It is elegantly furnished and contains a ballroom, something no other Wheeling residence boasts. One of the owners of the bank said that his house was not so nearly nicely furnished. He eventually deeded the bank the house to cover his theft. The total value at that point was listed as $12,000, which today would be more than $325,000. When he was first arrested, his father put up the bail and he skipped town and went to Kansas, and the local authorities tracked him down in Kansas and brought him back. He again was out on bail but stayed this time, and as I say, was convicted and spent time in the penitentiary. So a little bit of interesting. I don't suppose you have found any cash in the attic?
No, I certainly looked, but
all right.
I think he spent it all before I came around.
Probably did. All right, and this is Jared Stone, who is the current owner of this house, and we have a question.
Yeah, Jeannie, I noticed that these doors almost look similar to the Hazlett house.
They do. The doors look similar to that of the Hazlett house, which is another indication that perhaps it was the same architect or perhaps the same builder or both. So the style, the age, everything kind of points to that same architect, Edgar Wells. Yeah. And we will go inside and see part of this. We have Clark, who will lead us, I think, on the tour. We will stop the video then while we're finishing up inside here, and then we'll restart it when we go next door to the Foundry, a new bar that's also owned by the Stone family. All right, so you want to follow us inside?
I'm going to go around back and open the door.
Okay.
Yeah. We need to, since we have been trying to maintain the door.
Yes.
And it has been a lot of work that too. So right now we were working on getting a special, I don't know exactly which is the name, but it's a special lock, because the two doors need to be connected to be able to close.
Yes.
So Jared already got a antique, not like
like a magazine or
replacement?
yes, okay.
Something like that. So he's selling that. That's why he needs to go inside to open the door.
Okay. Yes, I see. There's no doorknob, which makes it hard too.
He's working with that.
Yes.
Please.
That's one way to keep an eye on visitors.
Yeah. There you go. Oh my. Oh, this is gorgeous. My goodness. All right, so we'll let you tell us a little bit and also what you've done.
Yeah, so when I first bought this house, this room was probably one of the worst. Floors were, they were all rotted with termite damage. So this granite floor with the mosaics is all something that was done after the fact. They're not original. It was just kind of my way of making something better than what it was, because it was unsalvageable. So a lot of work. The house was, well, it was up for sale for a couple years, and when nobody lives in houses, it's terrible for them. So, you know, the hot and cold weather caused all of this to crack. So you see all the woodwork and all the plaster's original, but all had to be redone. And other than that, a lot of collecting. You see the furniture in here. It's I try to keep it all Victorian. I try to keep it as time period as possible. So.
Okay.
So these light fixtures, were they original or you?
No, the original things in the house is the woodwork and all the mantles are original. Other than that, everything else in the house was pretty much gone. Even the doors were gone. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of original stuff to work with, but I tried hard to find original things from other houses, you know, salvage, antiques. So I really tried my best to replace everything that was missing. So.
Okay. All right. Can we go in there?
Oh yeah, we can move on to the parlor.
All right, Jared, I'm going to put.
Mike can't.
Okay. You're live.
Okay. All right, so this is the parlor room. This typically would have been the first place that we would brought guests whenever you invite them over to the house. And if the guests were invited to dinner, these pocket doors would have been closed, and whoever was managing the dinner would have been getting ready. So as you see, I try to keep everything as Victorian as possible. And I always like to tell people what's interesting in the Victorian era is all the furniture had very specific purposes to it. The furniture was gendered. This would have been where the male would have sat in the house, and this would have been where the female would have sat. And the reason for that is because the females would wear large hoop dresses, so they needed more space in order to be able to sit down. And then the men would sit here. It was typically considered masculine to sit with your arms out like this, and feminine to sit with your palms crossed. So there's a lot of etiquette rules that are reflected not only in the furniture, but just even in the floor plan of the house. It's all coherent to the Victorian etiquette. So I always like to share that with people. Other than that, work in progress. Mantles, this is all original, all the woodwork. Other than that, everything else here had to be found after the fact. No original furniture was found in the house when I bought it. So,
but original tile?
Original tile, yeah. Yeah, all the fireplace surrounds original. And these are gas inserts, but originally these would have been coal fire baskets. If you notice, the fireplaces are very small, so that's how you know that they were designed to burn coal, not wood. So. Didn't want to burn coal in my house, as cool as that would have been. I wasn't that dedicated, so I went with the gas inserts that resemble the coal. So.
You have a lot of wallpaper.
Yeah, a lot of wallpaper.
Like 10 layers of wallpaper each room.
Yeah, and it wasn't very nice wallpaper. If it was Victorian wallpaper, that would have been nice, but it was all 70s air, 60s, 70s air wallpaper, almost in every room. So. Yeah, it was that was a lot of work. Yeah, steamed it all off. I put paint on, but eventually I'm going to be wallpapering again, putting some pressed tin ceilings up. So yeah, there's a lot of work still to be done. But
What are your plans for these windows here up against the wall?
yeah, I was actually going to retrofit those windows in the dining room area. So right now, I just have them there as storage right now, and figured
You had a plan.
Yeah, they're decorations right now, but.
Or did you find them somewhere else?
I found those somewhere else as well. Yeah, they're actually from an old church up in PA. So, and we can move on to the dining room area. Yeah, so this is one room that you often houses anymore, dining rooms. A lot of living room dining rooms are all kind of one concept. So you would have had a place to sit and eat, and once again there would have been assigned areas where you were supposed to sit as the guest. Then the husband and wife of the house would typically sit at the ends of the table, and the seats reserved right next to the man of the house would have been for the closest cousin or relative or closest friend. So it's just interesting to see these people's lifestyles are reflected just in the way everything's designed. So.
Where did you get this chandelier?
I found that chandelier. I find a lot of my stuff on the internet. A lot of stuff on eBay is wonderful because you could essentially shop from all over the world. There's things that I found in this house that came from everywhere. Places from overseas, France, England, a fine place. I find just the oddest little things all throughout the U.S. Costs some money to ship, but you have to think, I would have never found these things if it wasn't for the internet. That's a big revolution. Before the internet, I would have been stuck shopping whatever was local or wherever I had time to travel, but now I can get on a computer and really find just about anything that I'm looking for. So, Yeah, that's another original mantle. It's interesting because there's a little piece of folk art that it's hard to see. I could get a light. There's a little engraving here on the granite of, it looks like two cherubs playing a flute to a vulture, and you could tell it's not professionally done. So it's almost as if somebody kind of gave it a shot, and that's what their imagination thought of. So it's very easily overlooked because it's black. You have to, you almost have to shine a light on it to see it. So yeah, little secret feature. Yep. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to complete this set. These are hard to find. I don't have the complete set yet. I'm missing about like 4 others, but I don't know if I'll ever find them.
And all of them are a combination of year. He has bought like 6 sets, trying to see which is the best match. And every time that it doesn't work, I don't know, so much effort waiting for the shipping. For example, there are some horns in the parlor. He brought that from Germany, I think. As he said, when he finds something he likes, we need to wait in contact. Can be sure that they are gonna ship it. Yes, okay. How much time? A month. And then when it comes and it doesn't match,
has to be resold. Yeah, we go in the kitchen.
I just try to get out of the way.
Yeah, I know. The house has many people. So this is kind of an interesting feature here. If you notice the way that the ceiling is framed in, this would have been originally the servant staircase. So the staircase would have came down. There would have been a landing right here, and then it would have came down and ended. So the servants would have had this area, which would have probably been also a kitchen, washroom. There's a cabinet there for storage. So this would have gave them access to everything that they needed. So yeah, the servant staircase, as you can see, it was obviously taken out, but I still have the spindles and the banisters. So.
Was the kitchen a lot smaller originally, and you opened it up, or was it this big?
It was always this big. So this is actually kind of a mystery about the house. You could tell from the outside this wasn't an extension or an addition. This was original to the house. So yeah, you have to ask yourself, why such a big room? Because yeah, Victorian kitchens back then typically weren't this big. But the best thing that I thought of is back then they typically would have done the cooking and their washing in the same area. So chances are this would have probably had big pots in it, boilers for doing laundry and to cook. So it probably would have been like a multi-purpose room for the servants, which is maybe why it was so large. Obviously, everything in here is modernized. I try to go with a couple little old world.
Keep the wife happy.
Yeah, yeah, because it takes a lot of dedication. We like to cook, so I thought I'll cheat a little bit when it comes to the appliances for the kitchen, but still try to give it a little bit of an old-fashioned theme. Another interesting thing is nowadays you see a lot of kitchens are highly decorative because they're typically the focal points of the house. You bring your guests to the kitchen. It's also the dining room. It's also the living room. So you see a lot of money and detail being put in kitchens. But back in the Victorian era, kitchens would have been strictly like a staff-only area, not to be ever seen by your guest. It would have been where you or the servants would have came to cater to your guests. So typically the kitchens were very utilitarian, non-decorative, simple, never meant to be seen. So it's a changing world. And even I joke around whenever I have friends over, we always end up in the kitchen. It's just like we just gravitate to the kitchen. And I think I have this big house and here we are crammed in the kitchen again, just like a modern day. So and then out back in the yard, you could kind of see a little area there. That used to be the summer kitchen. That building was actually removed and restored by Brian Wilson. Some of you may know him. So it actually is located on 14th Street now. in Betsy Sweeney's house on 14th Street. That
In the back building that she's got there, yeah.
yeah, that little
Oh, that
yeah,
whole building, that's.
the little mini building, yeah, in the back of her yard. Yeah. Because he bought his house on 14th Street and inspired me to buy my own, basically. Yeah, because I came over and he talked me into, well, he educated me on just how beautiful everything was, and next thing you know, I wanted my own. And we used to ride bikes around Wheeling late at night when all the traffic was gone, and we used to go house shopping to see which one I was going to get. And I remember driving past this one a long time ago, and he said, well, what about that one? Does it speak to you? And I said, yeah, maybe, and let's keep looking. So, you know, I was weighing out my options still back then, and I ended up with it. And it's not all choice. A lot of it's opportunity, you know, what's available at the time, what you can afford, what ends up just happening. So it's more fate than anything that ended up with this house. So.
What about the building where they rolled the cigars? Is that the one Brian?
Yeah, that would have been the little summer kitchen. Mm-hmm, yep. Yeah. So, and it's in great shape too. So. Just unfortunately, it's in a different location, but.
Do you do your own construction and your own remodeling? Does it, or?
I do some of it. Like I can do general work, but I'm not I'm not too skilled when it comes to the more complicated stuff. So.
Do you have someone that is skilled in historical restoration?
No, I just kind of been a lot of times I'll just be able to find a contractor, and that is an issue because a lot of the contractors they know how to get the utilitarian stuff done, but they're not really artists. So, when we come together, it's sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's complicated because I always interrupt and say, well, we have to worry about the aesthetics, and they're just worried about getting the job done and making it practical and making it work. So, yeah, sometimes it's a battle, but once in a while you'll find some really good guys that understand it. They get it, and like the man that did my marble, he did a great job, and it was cool because my mind and his came together, and even he was impressed. He said, "I can't believe I did this. It turned out great." So it's nice to see when people are surprised when they see what they could create. Working with some of the more elegant stuff. So, but yeah, that's always a battle trying to find somebody. Sometimes you got to do it yourself. So.
Can I ask you, what do you do for a living when you're not rehabbing the house?
I work at a company called Village Network. I'm a behavioral management specialist, and I work with teenage boys and girls. It's a pretty diverse job, but there's a lot of different reasons that they could end up in that facility. But so yeah, it's a pretty rewarding job. There's always new clients coming in, so it's the same old place, but it's never the same job because you're always dealing with new people, new stories. New personalities. So.
Is that located here in Maine?
They have facilities all throughout Ohio. The one that I work at is actually in Morristown, right off the Morristown exit. They call it the Bethesda campus, but it's technically in Morristown. So yeah, that's and they actually I'm pretty sure they do have offices, outpatient offices in Wheeling too. So.
Where did you get your love for?
All of this.
Yeah.
Honestly, Brian Wilson was the biggest inspiration, yeah, because he, like I said, when he bought his house, I came over and I kind of looking around and thinking, what the heck did you do? This place is big and in really bad shape, and then he had to sell the idea to me. He said, oh, hold on a minute, you got to look at all this detail, and that's the biggest thing is you have to look at all the detail, and then you also have someone explain to you how this stuff isn't made anymore and the value of it nowadays. If you wanted to do this type of woodwork in a modern house, just how expensive it would be. Some of the stuff you couldn't even do even if you had the money because people don't do it anymore. Like a lot of the masonry work, the stone work, the only people that still do that are people that make monuments and gravestones. So, good luck hiring those guys to build a house for you. They would, but, it wouldn't be practical. So. Yeah. So it's really about how you look at it, and when you start to realize that this stuff is rare, it's valuable, it's beautiful. Back in the Victorian era, art was celebrated in every single detail throughout the house. It's a concept called beautification. It didn't matter if it was even the little hinges on the door.
the keys, the light fixtures. There was nothing in the house that wasn't deserving of beauty and art being applied into it. And, once you start to realize all that, and you start to get a keen eye for that detail, the love for this stuff just comes natural afterwards. So yeah, I wasn't always into it, but it's just slowly started to build. The appreciation just, it builds on itself. And yeah, it's really addictive, right? Yeah, and then when you walk into a modern house, you look around, you're thinking, oh, where's all the art at? And, you just, yeah, you can't go back after, so you get spoiled. So yeah, it's definitely took some time to develop that taste. Yep. If we could move on here to the upstairs, then there's a little porch area out there. There's not too much to see, but you guys are welcome to walk around. We're moving upstairs.
Okay.
All right, we could move into the bedroom, make some room for everybody else. Yeah, so this yeah. Yeah, you gotta hide the modern stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that's original, and yeah, I'll explain that once everybody gets in, because a lot of people are thrown off by that. All right, I think that's almost everyone. Yeah, it's nice. How it's all stacking, and you could see that kind of well going all the way up to the third floor. You get a good look at it once we go up the third floor. You see all the way down. So these are the two bedrooms. It's as large as this house is. Surprisingly, it's a two-bedroom house because Harry and Minnie Seybold, they didn't have children, according to the research. So it was just the two of them here. And it's very surprising. A lot of people say, how many bedrooms is that? I say two. That's it. So typically in the Victorian era, the husband and wife would have had their own separate bedrooms. So this more than likely would have been the husband's room. And as you see, there's a doorway there, and that's accessing the other bedroom. So that way they would have been able to open the door, be with each other, and at nighttime they would have closed and went to bed. One kind of strange feature here that throws people off is over here you see a little sink area, and a lot of people look at it and they say, well, why the heck would there be a sink in a bedroom? But you have to really think of it in the Victorian context. Back in the Victorian era, you typically would have had a washstand in your bedroom. This is a standard piece of bedroom furniture. So rather than thinking of it as misplaced sink in the bedroom, you have to think of it as a plumbed washstand. That would have been luxurious, because rather than having to pour a pitcher of water and shave, brush your teeth, wash your face, and then toss the water out the window, you would have actually had running water at your washstand with a drain. So that would have been high-tech and luxurious back then. So yeah. What was that?
We've been missing the guy coming up the street.
Exactly, yeah, right. So that's another good benefit. Yeah.
Bedpan water, you know.
Right. Yeah, so we could go into the other bedroom. This is Clark's bedroom, so not very Victorian, but had to have somewhere for the baby. Oh. So yeah, this is the second bedroom. As you can see, the fireplaces aren't as detailed. Once again, bedrooms, you wouldn't really have guests up here very often. So you can see the simplicity of the house starts to kind of increase as you go up to the third floor. The parlor and the dining room and the hallway, foyer, those usually were the rooms in the Victorian houses that would have, had the most detail, the most money spent on them. So it is interesting to see how things do get more simple as we go up.
Yes, our ground floor has the oak, and then it has the pine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the flooring's a big thing too. The hardwood floors on the first floor, and then painted floors, rugs on the second floor. Yeah, and those are little details you have to appreciate. So yeah, not too much to see here other than baby toys. Yeah, there's not too much room in here, but I guess give people. Yeah. So this also would have been the servants' staircase. So as you see, we kind of have this awkward room that looks like a hallway because that's pretty much what it was.
One time went downstairs. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So what you would have had, you can see where the floorboards changed. Starting right here, there would have been a staircase that went down. It's kind of similar to a miniature version of that. There would have been landing, and then it would have went down one more time. So servant staircase was removed. I do have some of the spindles and the banisters. No, that was done a long time ago. Yeah, I actually found some of the leftover staircase in the basement, just kind of rotted away.
Pictures of anything how it used to look?
No, but I can tell there's some evidence from the floor molding. You could actually crawl up into a little space, so you could actually see exactly how it went. So I could get a good image of what it used to look like. But yeah, that was done a long time ago. Not sure when exactly. Because this used to be apartments too. It was divided up into 3 different apartments. This actually used to be a kitchen to the second floor apartment. There actually used to be a stove and kitchen stuff here. Yeah, so I just kind of removed everything and fixed the floors for now. Not sure what I'm going to do yet. It's a hard call. But yeah, that's the old servant staircase, and you all also can see how the corners are rounded because the servants would have been always coming back and forth with trays, so they didn't want to bump the corners. So get rounded corners coming into the old staircase. All right. Yeah, you guys are free to have a look over there. Yeah, it's just a storage closet. Probably what it always was. Storage. Maybe a little office.
That's a plus.
Yeah, little rooms like that. It's really hard to tell, what they were used for originally. be the one room everybody will be able to fit in. I mean, yeah.
This would have been the ballroom,
Yeah.
Sadly, they wouldn't have lived here long enough to have a lot of balls.
Right, yeah. Yeah, or finish it at, sometimes I think it was left unfinished because, there's not too much detail up here. So yeah, it really makes me wonder about the timing of everything.
Right.
But it's hard to tell. We may never know.
This will make a great guest room or
Yeah, right now it's just
third
kind of,
bedroom in general. Yeah.
yeah, it'd be nice to make it a ballroom again, but now with kids, I thought,
Yeah.
it'll be hard
Yeah.
because we'll actually need all the rooms.
People don't have balls very often. Now.
Yeah, that too.
In
Yeah,
their homes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's actually the restrooms are actually all kind of in a tower because you have to think. Originally the house wouldn't have been plumbed, so they kind of had to retrofit the plumbing. So a lot of times what they did is they just made what used to be storage closets. They would turn them into bathrooms. So the bathrooms actually stack. They're in the same spot on all 3 floors, just all above each other. So they're actually right over there. But that's
Yeah, I was surprised to see the one in that level floor, the bathroom there behind the stairs. I didn't expect to see a bathroom.
Right. Yeah. So they probably would have just been closets, and they had to stick those bathrooms where they could have. And it's interesting because you would have seen like the way they ran the plumbing. It would have just been all just one chute, So
Makes it easier for the sewer pipe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because a Mason house that was never meant to be plumbed with water. They had to work with what they had. So we're in the 3rd floor right now. This is the ballroom that a lot of people in the neighborhood seem to know about. Whenever I run into people on the sidewalk, they always tend to ask about the 3rd floor ballroom. As you can see, what you imagine a ballroom might be, this is pretty plain. It makes me wonder whether or not the original owners were ever able to finish the ballroom before Harry Seybold was caught. So yeah, it's plain, but as you can see, it's pretty large. Typically, the 3rd floor rooms would have been where the servants would have stayed, but yeah, this house has some unique features to it. It seemed like Harry and Minnie Seybold wanted it for themselves. They wanted to host parties, balls in here. And out here, you can see there's the Juliet Balcony. It's pretty small. The banister is very low because back then they didn't want the banister to interrupt the view. So they weren't too concerned about safety more than they were preserving the beauty of the hills. So got to be a little careful if you step out there. But it's secure. You're not going to fall through as long as you don't fall over. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So yeah, interesting little space. Not much room here, basically. Just a little cove to look out into. Also makes me curious what buildings wouldn't have been here back when the house was originally built. It probably would have been a really beautiful view because the valley.
You would have seen the river
crested.
like that.
Yeah.
Parts of it. Yeah.
Right, because that's where all the hills kind of curve into a valley. So that would have been a really nice view at one point before everything else was built up around it. So it's one of my favorite features in the house.
Is that the original door?
Yeah, that is the original door. It looks like somebody stuck an old window panel in there, but yeah, at one point the door had a large glass pane so you could see the view outside when it's closed.
Now, you had said that most of the doors weren't here when you purchased the home. Where did you get the doors that look of that era?
Those had to be freighted in from New Jersey. There was a salvage guy out there. I looked everywhere, and that was the closest one. So those 3 doors actually are original, but all of the doors, all the big ones that you see downstairs, they were all missing. Every one of them except the bathroom ones, which makes me wonder whether or not they were stolen or if they were sold, because if they were stolen, those are courteous thieves because they left the bathroom doors.
Do you have pictures of the home so that you could mimic what it looked like?
No. I had some pictures from some realtor websites from back when, well, it wasn't that long ago. This would have been like in the early 2000s. And you could see pictures from this website. A lot of the features actually were still there in the pictures. In other words, a lot of these things were here up until fairly recently. All the doors were there, including the second, in the French doors, you could see there's double doors. There used to be doors that matched the detail of the front doors perfectly. And there also used to be the etched glass, not stained glass, but the etching. And it used to say 3526. There was a lot of details that fairly recently went missing, which is unfortunate. So yeah, you could see in those, I think early 2000, well, no, maybe around like 2010 or 11, I think the pictures were taken. There was a lot more left in this house, so yeah.
So even these hinges are original on the doors? Or did you
Yeah, these, which ones do I have on there? Yeah, those are original hinges.
that detail on them?
Yeah. Right, yeah, and the ones downstairs, you'll see, those are steeple top hinges. Some of them are rounded, so you'll see some of them don't match. I found a lot of those. They are original Victorians. They're just not original to this house specifically. But yeah, those big hinges. And the ones downstairs have 4 holes because the doors are a lot bigger. And you'll see the hinges are about, probably about an inch larger than those.
How many servant-type people would have been in the house? Do you have that idea?
No, I think from the research, I know there was one servant that was in the house when Harry and Minnie Seybold lived here. I don't know if there would have been much more because you have to think no children, just husband and wife. Usually the more servants, the more children, the more family members there were to take care of. So I would say just one, unless if that might have changed. Of course, any farther in the future, then a lot of people didn't even have servants. So I think that all kind of faded out afterwards.
Did you find anything about a dance in this room?
No.
Were you able to look in the internet and word search or anything?
No, I haven't really found much. I know there was some affiliation with the church next door, and I know there were some. Sometimes they would have hosted some events for the church. So yeah, that's the most as I know, though. Very limited detail on that. So yeah, you could see these poking out through the room. So you got to think this big room. There would have been one little tiny light burning here. That's all you had. Is typically one little light fixture per room. So yeah, if you look carefully, you'll see those. They're in the closets too, in the bedrooms. A lot of times this is broken, but you'll still be able to see this. So yeah, one per room. Very very simple, very minimal.
Jared, in answer to Margaret's question, when I did the original research, when Harry was in prison, Minnie was able to keep the house and even hosted a church social for the benefit of Third Presbyterian Church in August of 1892. The event was described in local papers as a, quote, parlor concert followed by a lawn fete at which refreshments were served. Unquote. Entertainment included piano and vocal solos, a guitar solo, a zither solo, and a couple of readings.
There you go. It's like they did manage to use, and another thing that's interesting is the yard that you see. A lot of times yards like that are buildings that have been torn down, but that originally was always part of this house. So it's kind of unique to see such a large yard in a neighborhood that would have been blocked off pretty tightly back then. Right. So,
and I will say, when I was researching building next door, which is where we'll go next door, I found the 1921 Sanborn map, which was added to in 1950-ish.
The insurance map?
The Sanborn insurance map. Okay. And at that point, it showed the 2 wooden structures Probably when Albert Wheeler had his cigar manufacturing business in the back. So these are two wooden structures, two-story wooden structures behind the house itself.
Oh, wow. I didn't know there was two. Yeah, because I knew this probably would have been the little...
This is probably the little one, or maybe this one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, wow.
So I'll give you this when we're finished.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I didn't know.
Gene, what was Star Manufacturing? Star, did you say?
Cigar manufacturing.
I'm sorry.
Cigars. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. I think we will stop the house tour video at this point.